I definitely had a blast and would recommend coming to this event the next time it's on. I'm not sure when they'll be on next, but it is a really good event to meet people who
Number 9 of 20, whose phone's gonna ring? Oh, yes! We've got a person, we got one of those, give them a round of applause!
With some accent, but now most of you think you're from Greece, so I don't have to pretend that I have an accent. I can speak Greek English, okay? And now we can continue to
the combat system, the area control. So it's quite a complex system.
It's really cool. Like I learned a lot from them. I also learned a lot.
Okay, and now clap your hands.
So
You can go, Aris.
Okay. How's everyone?
Good.
Is that how loud you can be? How's everyone? Okay. I'd like first to thank Prisma because they have been volunteers and give us this nice space, and we can do the meetup. And this is the first time we're doing a conference in Berlin, and hopefully we can do more. But yeah, it's more like a London event. It is a community conference, and we started like probably like 6 years ago. Milos is one of the people that have been doing meetups in London, and our meetup is called JS Monthly. And we started doing meetups, and then we started doing conferences. And we came up with the idea of Cityjs. And we started doing conferences in London first, and then during the pandemic we expanded across the world. And then after the pandemic, when people wanted to do conferences, they didn't want to do the conferences virtually anymore. They wanted to do it in person. So we had to expand and do conferences around the world. So this conference, the first that we do in Berlin, and we are a community conference. We try to keep the prices low and make accessible to everyone, from junior developers to senior developers to everyone that wants to attend and learn from great speakers like the ones we have here. So I would like to give thank you again to Prisma, and we can hear a bit more about Prisma.
Hello everyone, welcome to our office. We're glad to have you. I'll be giving you a quick lightning talk on what Prisma and what exactly we're doing. So who am I? My name is Alex, and I'm a developer advocate at Prisma, where we're a small startup based in Berlin building developer-focused tools that specifically make it easy for developers in the Node.js ecosystem and provide tools that satisfy 3 particular workflows when working with databases. And that is data modeling, schema migrations, and querying your database. Everything when working with Prisma kind of begins at the Prisma schema. And the Prisma schema is where you define the structure of your database. Over here, we have 2 models, one called post and one called user, with a one-to-many relation between the user and the post. And once you've done kind of defining the structure of what your database is like, the next step is to run a command that generates a SQL migration, which is applied to your database, and also then generates the types based off of your Prisma schema that guarantees you type safety when you're querying your database. So besides the open source RM that we're working on, we're also working on a few other tools, and one of them is Accelerate that provides you with connection pooling, which is essential for serverless and edge environments where they're ephemeral. And it also provides caching for your database, queries, results, and it's cached as close as possible to where your application is. And we make it super easy for that to happen, and that starts with first kind of importing the extension that we built and creating an instance of it, and then kind of defining a cache strategy for your queries. And in this particular case, we're making a query to the user table for all records. We're caching it for 60 seconds, which with the time to live strategy. And then we also have a stale while revalidate, meaning we'll serve the stale data for 60 seconds before we kind of refresh it in the background for you. We're also building another thing called Pulse, which provides you with real-time data access. Well, allows you to query your database in real time. And it also kind of gives, has a similar workflow to Accelerate, where you first instantiate the extension. I'll share with you a link in case you're interested in extensions. So you instantiate the extension called with Pulse, and then you define a subscription to the user table. And this is this subscribes to all the changes that happen specifically from the database, captured through another tool, and then we pipe it to it. In this particular case, we would subscribe to all events from create operations to update and delete operations. And besides that, we recently published something that we call the Data DX Manifesto that defines, kind of summarizes exactly what our vision and what we've been working on building tools that kind of make it easy for developers when working with databases, and making it easy and fast as well. And one quote, as we were kind of trying to define the manifesto, is that it's always been there, and we just didn't have a name for it. So in case you're curious, we'll be organizing an event probably soon. And if you will recommend you check it out, if you'd like to partner with us, reach out to us. And I believe Cityjs is a good candidate, for example, so is Peter. So reach out to us, we'd like to work with you on that. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the meetup.
Okay, so the next speaker, he was one of our attendees in the London event, Peter, and now he's a speaker in Berlin. So give him a warm welcome.
I didn't use a Mac, I'm sorry.
Okay, we got this one. Okay, we made it. Give a big clap.
All right, so we made it, and I'll start with bold statement. Yeah. Vercel breaks the web. And I want to talk about what's wrong with Next.js app folder. It is still pretty new, even though it's second version of Next.js, where is it stable. And there are some problems, even though I love working with Next.js and Vercel provides great developer experience. There are some problems, and I want to talk about it. So, who am I? I'm tech enthusiast. I've been using even assistants for programmers like Tab9 5 years ago, almost a year ago, after their release. So way before ChatGPT got very high. And yeah, I used Next.js since beta version, and I presented it at that time to the company I was working at. And I've seen a lot of great changes that Vercel did to Next.js. And right now, they started to be less standardized, and I wanted to talk about it. I'm also freelance consultant. I was working in the German company here, and then I decided to go the freelance way. And I'm founder of educational platform. It's sadly only in Czech. And I'm also starting a new startup that wants to change the education in enterprises. And you can find me everywhere as Bleeding Dev because I love bleeding edge technologies. And I've been using Angular in alpha version in production because I needed some feature. Okay, I updated this talk after Next.js Conf, which was 4 or 5 days ago. And we'll start briefly with what is in a folder and what is it. Then we'll go to the core of the problem. First one is override of the fetch. Second one is override of the form. And the last big one is running Next.js outside of Vercel ecosystem. And we'll end up positively if it's worth it or not. Spoiler, it is. So the new app folder was introduced in Next.js 13 last year, and it brings new routing and some more things to the table. First one is easy layout in Next.js, because previously it was pretty hard to share the layout, and now it's really easy. Then they cover more complex use cases. Layout is one of them. Then there is sharing, data fetching. Who here knows Relay from Facebook? It was competition to the GraphQL. I forgot the name. Apollo? Yeah, Apollo. It was kind of competition, but it suited Facebook needs, and therefore it never got much attention because it was loud. It had loud documentation. It was hard to work with, and I was one of the people who wanted to try it. I put it on production, and then we found many hidden comments. Don't use it. It's not ready. It's Facebook internal use. So yeah, and that's kind of basically first foundational thing for React server components that are next thing that is in the app folder, because it's necessary to fetch the data in advance, and you don't want your page to show up, loading spinner, then more spinner, then more spinners. And therefore, Relay was covering this part, and now in Next.js, it's covered this way. And then they added more. So first one is streaming. They want to stream the data as it comes. And recently in Next.js 14, they started with partial rendering. It's still experimental, but it will be even more streaming of your data. You will basically render only some shell that is that is static or semi-static and cached on the CDN or Vercel infrastructure, and then more data will come, so it will be faster to don't have the blank page. And the last thing, React on the server. React server components, because React was on the server. We've had SSR thanks to Next.js and many other solutions way before, but this time it's running React only on the server if you want to. There are some gotchas, but we are not going to talk about them because focus is breaking the standards. So this one is not that huge because they are just adding more properties and extending the fetch function. And there are some parameters missing. There is also no type checking, and therefore the IDE you use, it will recommend you some types that are not allowed in Vercel's fetch function or Next.js fetch function. And it is pretty easy to provide their own custom types, but they decided not to do so. And they provided their own custom parameters to fetch as well. They are non-standard, and types, if you click the fetch function, lead to native TypeScript library, not to Vercel definition. And you need to click directly on the parameters that are extended to get what you want to know. And because they did not provide their own types, it is allowed to do invalid configuration. One example is that you can say that there is no cache, and then there is parameter revalidate, and you can tell to revalidate after 1 hour. So if there is no cache and you want to revalidate its invalid configuration, it can be covered with types, but it is not. So how do we fix the fetch? We can provide custom fetch, and that's actually the approach I want to highlight from the remix, because they decided to have their own form and its custom component that will be exported from the remix library. They are not overriding anything. And Vercel could do the same thing. They could provide their own fetch function, and we can do so as well. We can create our own fetch function and provide our own types. But the problem is, how do we force other projects to use it as well? So it's not really easy, and maybe if we could change it, it would be breaking change from Vercel and Next.js, because it's already there, it's already working. So I don't think that Vercel will allow exporting custom fetch function. There is cache function, which is finally exported from Next.js library, and we can create anything we need. We can even cache different operations that are not based on fetch. We can cache the queries from database and everything we need and want. And there is a problem. It accepts only global configuration. So in Next.js you can export constant that is called revalidate, and it's the number. So you can customize, if you have in one file, you can customize the revalidation time. There is great thing, unstable cache function, ready for production. And it's in Next.js, and it accepts local config, so you can provide more data. The cache function is exported from React library, and unstable cache is exported from Next.js. And the great thing is that you can provide tags. So how many of you used Next.js fetch from a folder? Okay, so you can revalidate information, and if you send data to through the form and get it back, you can revalidate whole page and it will refresh the data, or you can revalidate only some tags that are like grouping the information you want to fetch, and you want to revalidate everything together. So with this unstable cache function, you can provide the text, and after you submit the form, it will refetch, for example, a user profile after user changes his name. So it's way better than cache function from React, but it is still unstable. So we'll see how that goes, and if anybody uses it for some cached operations. I think that library authors can do it in the future, but we'll see how much they want to lock themselves in Vercel ecosystem. So form override. It overrides completely the form because it allows something that is completely out of the standard. As I said, Remix exports their own custom form component, and Next.js doesn't do so. It's non-standard, whole purpose of the talk. Server actions, they are finally stable since last week, and that's the core of this function. You can provide to action attribute, usually you provide URL, where it sends the data. Now you can provide the function, and Next.js magically handles everything. It creates the API route, and it returns the data and handles progressive enhancement. That's great because the forms can now easily work without JavaScript if you manage to run Next.js without JavaScript. That's another thing. But the server actions are really great, and they can make it really easy. And recently, Facebook added client actions to Next.js. It's the same thing, but it runs only on the client. So you don't need the server at all, but the API is completely compatible. So you don't need to provide onSubmit function and then event.prevent default and handle other cases. It's just compiled in a normal way. And if you decide that you need server, you can just add their function that runs only on the server, but the API is compatible and it sends the form data. They are not already experimental, but there are some things that are still not covered in the community well. So we'll see how that goes. It's still pretty easy to leak some information. You can leak environment variables if you don't do it correctly. There is new API that covers these leaks. You can block information from being sent to the client. But the problem is you need to be explicit. You need to know this API. And there are still risks to this. It's compilation magic. They are not sending JSON anymore. It's a format that is not easily, it can be easily read, but it's not parsable if you want to handle it in some service workers or something else. You need to use Next.js to cover this. And so far, it's compilation magic, and I wonder how easy it will be with the debugging when something bad happens in Next.js. How do we fix it? Same thing, we can provide custom form, but Vercel would not allow it, I guess. We can use libraries that make it easy to use forms. There are great libraries like React Hook Forms, Modular Forms, and Tanstack Forms, I think. So they might save us, but recently community has been pushing more towards universal libraries. For example, Tanstack is more universal than other libraries. So I'm not sure if they will go the way to push it how Vercel wants, let's say. So far, nothing that is working greatly with server actions, and it's really hard. Only library that I was able to find was Zacht from Theo Brown or t3.gg, and he's pushing Next.js really hard. Even though he says he loves it and he admires that they paid him, it's still kind of problematic, and some people don't like his opinions because he's paid and he's too much on the edge, and he doesn't cover some cases that many people find problematic. And there is more because of the conference. they now override even the button. It's not even remotely close to standard because they provide form action, which is pretty valid, but you can provide form action to the button and it sends to different endpoint. Now you provide also function to the button. The problem is that the example that they showed was not in the form. So you could provide the function to just button, and what will happen? It will wrap the button inside the form. Well, it might break the DOMs, DAOs, and everything. So we are yet to see how this behaves when we use just the button with form action if it's outside of the form. It's the feature from Next.js 14, and it provides form-like behavior. We'll see the problems that will come with this feature. But I must say I love it because now you can send the user based on the data from form and from pressing the button elsewhere. It was already possible because you can have multiple buttons that lead to multiple places or that are covered differently, but it's still not well used and well known. I think that Remix pushes this a lot because Ken Dodds, who talks about Remix, has been using this feature of multiple buttons for a long time. And it's in the standard, but Vercel makes it non-standard. Still, it provides progressive enhancement, so it should work without JavaScript. The most problematic part of running Next.js outside of Vercel is cache, because they started building custom stuff that is not working really well on other hostings. There is also cron API. You specify it in Next.js configuration, and then it magically happens. There are no standard configs for crons except the time when it occurs. And ESR, or incremental static regeneration, it's the thing with revalidate. And for example, on Cloudflare, you are not able to revalidate the page because it builds on custom Vercel functions. And recently, they added support for ESR. So how can you run Next.js outside of Vercel? You can, of course, do Docker, but the problems are that if you have multiple versions of the application, you need to somehow deploy multiple versions of backend as well, because now it's tied too much together. And Vercel handles it by running all the things on the edge if you still allow it. So if user has cached version of the application and it calls the older version of endpoint, it is still possible to run it. But if you have Docker instances, you need to run all of them that your users still use. So it's still pretty problematic, and we'll see how it goes. There is better option for users of AWS, because OpenNext is right now only for AWS, and it aims to build Next.js for other cloud providers outside of Vercel ecosystem, because it's problematic. They didn't support ESR for almost the whole existence of the project. Right now, they do support it. There was a huge update a few months ago. So it's not about open source, it's about locking in ecosystem. That's how I see the Vercel's approach. They are still VC funded, and they want to lock people in their cloud, and we'll see how that goes. So is it worth it? The answer is, it depends. You need to know what you need. If you need epic productivity, Next.js is blazing fast for development. You just create the repository, connect Vercel, deploy, and in 5 minutes, you are running with great application. They have great bootstrapped examples. So it's epic productivity. On the other hand, if you leave, there is possibility of huge pain incoming because it's really hard to run Vercel outside of Vercel with all the features they provide. If you know in advance that you will want to leave, you can avoid the mistakes that they did. Or I don't think it's mistake, because I see that they are doing it on purpose, because they are VC funded. There are still some thoughts how much they are profitable. So we are being locked more and more. And the last thing, you are forced to go the Vercel way. So if you have some enterprise needs, it might be that you need to change the way you do applications and do some stuff because Vercel wants you to do so. But I love the productivity, and I thank you for watching, because even though this talk was a bit of hate on Vercel, I still love it, and it's great productivity too.
Any questions for Peter?
Thank you very much. I haven't worked with the Next.js for long, but as far as I know that as it works with Vercel server side, I mean, it is serverless, but a server is provided by the Vercel. It gives the problem with the performance as well. I mean, do you think that it is also a problem, for example, working with the big projects, or do you have an idea about that?
Yeah, I think.
Do you mind just repeating the question for the viewers online?
Okay, so the question was. So the question was about that Vercel provides the serverless and hosting, and what are the problems with speed and how do they handle it? Yeah, so it's okay for the performance, and they are pushing it really hard. And the edge computation with Next.js, it was there since I think version 10, at least unstable. And the problem is that you want to go outside sometime in the future if your application grows too much. And there are reports of projects that had wrong caching of images, and they were regenerated. And then you want to probably leave Vercel. So the biggest pain is if you overgrow it, you need to invest a lot of money and time to get the same performance. And you need to do the math, because you want to know if the time spent is worth it, or you can grow more a bit.
Okay, next question.
Yeah. You said, like, server actions were experimental. I think it's actually stable since last week.
Yeah.
Just 14.
Yeah.
Did you try them?
Yeah. Today I created the application that works really well, even with the validation. And yeah, they are now stable since last week.
And the general question is, how did it go for you, the upgrades in general for Next.js? Because like they do a lot of breaking changes. And what was your experience with upgrading usually in the past?
Yeah, so the biggest problem is if you use CSS in JS, because it doesn't work on the server well. So that was biggest pain for most of the projects. But the great thing is that it's still breaking change, but you can still use pages and upfolder in parallel. So you can have some content in the old version as you migrate, or you might not migrate some things at all.
Okay, great. Thank you. A big clap. So next one, I don't know how many of you have been blocked by bad data. How many of you? Hands up.
Yeah.
Okay, that's looking good. It's only 3 or 4 people. So Peter here, he's from South Africa originally, right?
I am.
He's going to tell us how not to be blocked by that bad data. So let's find out.
I'll show you a demo. And as you know, live demos never ever go the way that they're meant to. But I've practiced this, so we'll see how it goes. Okay. So my name is Peter Pistorius. A couple of years ago, I created a framework with Tom Preston Warner, David Price, and Rob Cameron called Redwood.js. You may have heard of it, maybe not.
Sorry to interrupt. Have you shared your presentation in StreamYard?
Yeah.
Can you just double check if you did the right tab?
He's sharing, but we need to add him.
I think I'm sharing my entire screen. That's what it says here.
Okay, great. Let's do it.
We're good?
Yeah, switch back to the other screen. Okay, great. Let's do it.
But does it not share the full screen?
No.
Ah, okay.
Stop sharing and in StreamYard. Present. Share screen. Entire. Okay, do entire, so it's much more loud. Okay.
I think
Click now.
probably because it's on a different screen.
Yes, I think that should be fine now.
Okay, great. Let's do it.
Great. So I created this framework along with Tom Preston Warner, David Price, and Rob Cameron called Redwood.js, where our entire focus was fixing developer productivity. Move that out of the way. So this is you, if you're a developer. You're a cat. You've got your headphones on, you're listening to Daft Punk, and you're in flow. Like, you're not thinking about anything other than the problem that you're trying to solve. And as a developer, this is my favorite space. I love being here. It's what I live for. And I'm now the father of a 14-month-old, so I haven't experienced this in a very long time. But someday I hope to get back there. What I didn't mention is I created a startup called Snapple, and that's sort of what I'm going to be showing you today, the product that we were building. So whilst I was building Redwood, I noticed that there were issues around the database, specifically around the data in the database. I often got into these states where I just simply didn't have good data in my database. And when I say good data, what I really mean is production data. Because the code that you run runs on production. And it speaks against the database in production. But locally, you probably have like a really bad representation of production. Like just not accurate at all. And the issues I was running into was that I didn't have access to that data. So I was just sitting there and pretending and introducing my bias into the code base that I was busy writing. What I wanted to be was this happy cat, loving my database and being able to stay in flow. So we built a product called Snapit. It does two main things, and it hinges around the idea, or it hinges around access to your production database. If you have access, you'll use a snapshot, and you'll be able to take your production database and bring it locally. That's probably like a really bad idea, right? Like you don't want your production database locally, but our tool allows you to take away the private information by anonymizing it using TypeScript. And you can also copy a subset of that. So you can say, I only want 100 rows, I only want 100 users and their related, their relational data. So you get like a representation of your database that has mock values that's small. You can get that down in your local machine really easily. But what I want to show you today is not this. It's something called Generate. Now, Generate is what we think of as a replacement for seed scripts. So this thing is built, it's done, and people are using it. This thing we're busy building, and I want to show you an early demo of what it does. What I find is that if you aren't able to code against actual production data, like you're working in an organization where that just isn't possible, you probably have a seed file that seeds your database when you begin your project or when you're writing tests, et cetera, and you get something called seed fatigue. I'm going to show you what that looks like. This is cal.com. This is their seed file. So this is what they use to code against locally. All the engineers are in. Oh, sorry. It doesn't matter. You'll see illustrative purposes. Let's scroll. Let's go. All right, we keep going. Okay. All right. Oh man, I actually didn't think it was this long. It's 500 lines. That's not bad. There are worse ones, but it's 500 lines that you have to maintain, and it's got nothing to do with your job. It's just fake data. It's the imaginary. And you have to remember, like, if I'm inserting one row here, that's a user, users have relations, and I got to figure out all those differences in my database. So you've got to insert them in the right places. You have to understand this file in its entirety if you want to modify it. But you probably don't, so you just do it dirty. And then your C file becomes this unmaintainable mess. All right, so that's the thing that I wanted to solve. Oh, sorry, wrong slide. So I want to show you generate by Snaplet. And what we're going to do is create an imaginary database. This is a database for a cat cafe in Tokyo, where a customer that has some personal information can book a slot for petting a cat. That's our scheme. All right. And it's demo time. Oh man, I've got the slide. There's your database on fire. If things go wrong, just think of this burning database and then you can forgive me. Okay, all right. Let me just show you over here. The database is empty. Is that big enough?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it's empty.
It's empty. I'll try and zoom in. Can I zoom in? You? No, I can't zoom in, but I'll read it out to you, okay? Okay. So right here, I can zoom in. So here we have a snaplet.conflict.ts file that we're going to use to generate data in our database. What I'm going to do is specify that I want a booking. In our database, we have this bookings table that had a relation to cats and customers. I'm going to tell Snaplet that what I'd like is a booking, and I'd like a single one. Oh, that's just the way that. Then I'm going to run that over here. npx snaplet generate -- yes will warn me that it's going to erase my database. So I'm just going to run that. Okay, there's one. All right, now we've got a single booking row. It has a customer and it has a cat. And if we go look at that data, you'll see here it has a first name. I know you can't read this, I'm sorry, but it's Constance Oberbrunner, in German. They have an email address, they have a phone number, and they have an address. So like our tool figured out all the data in their database, all the data in this schema. It did that by introspecting the schema, had a look at the columns, and it figured out what you want in your database based on that. And then it populated it. If you have a look at cat, the cat's name is Chastity Quitson. Its breed is an address, so we did that wrong. And its age is 41,000 years. So we did that wrong too.
Right.
So the nice thing about Snaplet is that we can interrupt it. We can say, hey, you did some things that we didn't like. So I'm going to say for the cat, particularly, I'd like to fix the age, and I'm going to return a range. So I'm going to say copycat.int. I'm going to provide this copycat library with the seed values. So this library, copycat, it generates deterministic values. So for any given input, it will always generate the exact same output. That's super important when you're trying to code against something or test against something, to have values that are always the same. So as long as this seed value is always the same, it will always generate the same value. So no matter how many times I run npx snaplet generate, we'll get the same data out. So you can rely on that. Then I'm going to give it a range. Let's just say max 20 years. I think cats can live to be 20 years, right? And then I also want to, they can, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I want to fix the breed. And I'm going to say copycat dot one of. Then we stick in that seed value again. And then we're just going to ask ChatGPT. Help me out here. You might notice that I rock without ChatGPT. There we go. But it is nice when it's available. Okay, we're going to run that again. Oh, you know what? I actually also would like to fix that person. The person's email address really bothered me because I can actually put this screen up here. Because they're using a weird email address, and I prefer to use example.org or something like that. And I hate it when email addresses are uppercase. So because this is a TypeScript file, we can just modify, we can modify these ordinary TypeScript functionality. So what I'm going to do is change the email address. I'm going to return copycat.email. I'm going to seed it, and we have a special thing. You can say, give me a example.org email address, and let's lowercase. All right. I'm going to run that again. And if we go and look at our database, we'll see that the cat is now Persian, and its age now 7. And if I run this again, you'll see the data remains the same. It's deterministic. So no matter how many times I run it, it'll stay the same. All right, yeah, we also have our different email address with example.org. And because it's TypeScript, you can literally do anything. You want to do conditional logic. You want to import like a third-party NPM package, you can do that. But I only generated 1 booking. That's not helpful. So this function is overloaded, and we have this x, which we call times. So you can say times. What I actually want is 10 bookings. It also takes a callback where you can specify the data. Let's just fix this real quick. Well, real quick. I'm gonna. Okay, 1 more. So.
One more in front of the.
Here?
No, the line 14 on normal bracket. It's not returning an object.
Oh, you're right. There we go. Let's do that.
Oh, this way.
Thank you. It's weird when you live code how your brain like. Actually, my brain's not working here. All right, so return cat.
There's one more. Yeah. Right.
Okay, wait. Sorry, everyone. Let's fold this. Okay, and then we get a type error because and 1 more. Actually, I'm not getting the type error here. Oh, this didn't invoke the function. Thank you, TypeScript. Okay. All right. So now what we'll get is 10 bookings. 10 bookings, 10 customers, 10 cats. So that's a really easy way to get data in your database. But there's even more functionality that you can explore with Snapit. Like what I could do is say instead of just 10 customers, 10 bookings, 10 cats, what I actually want is 100 customers, 10 cats, 1,000 bookings. And you could pipe all those together and use this functionality called auto connect, and it will distribute the relational values across your bookings table. If you're all okay, I'll show you how that works. Is anyone really bored?
No.
Okay. All right, let's do it. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some bookings. So I'm going to say I'm going to create some cats. Let's say we want 10 cats, and we're going to return that awesome cat data. So in other words, the breeds and ages that are representative. Stick them in there. Okay, then we're going to generate some customers. So we say customers. Let's just complete that and return an object. So instead of 10 customers, I'm going to say 100. And I'm going to use this thing here to modify the data again. And then I'm going to create bookings. And I'm going to create 100 bookings. And I'm not going to touch the data here. Okay. And I'm going to use a special method called AutoConnect. So what AutoConnect is going to do, it's going to take the values that are defined here, and it's going to pipe them into the last model. So we understand your entire database structure, and we can do intelligent things with your relationships. You can also bring in existing data. There's a lot you can do. We're still trying to figure out the exact use cases that make sense to people. So please try it out and let us know what works for you or what doesn't. So what I'm going to do is pipe these 3 values together: the cats, the customers, and the bookings.
You don't return the object, you just have the.
Thank you. Are you looking for a job? Just kidding. Okay, here. I actually did the same thing, didn't I? Okay. Really could have done this better. I think this is a linting. So there's always a danger with live coding, right? I'm so sorry.
Up the back.
All right. I do not have the mental focus in order to complete this, so I'm sorry. Give me a moment.
Maybe let's zoom. Let's zoom.
Zoom out.
Mind you were using Python.
Yeah. Zoom out a bit. Yeah.
Okay, all right. We've got this one there, we've got that one there. Wait. So we're getting customer. Okay. All right, I think the problem is.
Now your comma there, pretty fine.
Okay. Just fix our indentation. You can tell I don't code every day anymore.
It's maybe a curly bracket, missing closing curly bracket.
Do you think so?
Was missing it. No.
Oh, yeah, I was that. Okay, and then for some reason this one. Okay, this X. X 100. True. Alright. I don't know why that's weird. But I'm gonna try it and see what happens.
If you switch to problems in the tab, you will see there are 5 of them.
So it's 25, we're missing a semicolon. That one is there. Ah, okay, there we go. That one. Same one here.
Yeah, only 2 left.
Okay.
No, callbacks are tough.
They are tough, and like
Callbacks are tough.
when my prettier isn't running here.
Take your time, nobody will do it better.
Zero judgment.
Anyone else really warm? All right, you know what? I'm not gonna be able to do this.
Can you explain what you want to do?
Yeah. So what will happen here is we'll generate 10 cats separately. Like there'll be 10 cats in our database. There'll be 100 customers in our database after that. And then we'll create 100 bookings, and Snaplet will automatically distribute those 10 cats and those 100 customers across your bookings. So it'll take all the data and like shuffle it around.
And make cascade writing in the database.
Yeah, so those relationships are enforced. So you could like shape your model in the way that you want, or your data in the way that you want, and then just have this light touch interaction to define it. And whenever you find a scenario where you want to modify your data, you just head on into one of these values and you interrupt it. Okay, all right, I actually figured out what I actually figured out the problem. So I don't need to return cat. There we go. Okay.
You see?
I'll be back here.
Okay. All right. So we said 100 bookings.
Finished.
You need to learn maybe to generate.
Oh! One more thing. All right, let's run that.
I was waiting for the class.
So it was really fast. I was like, oh, we wrote some good code here. All right. 100 bookings. 100 customers. We got that's how you can throw away your seed script and use something like Snaplet Generate, so you don't have to think about this anymore. We also will stick this in you'll be able to use this in your tests. And we have a new mode coming out called synthetic mode, where you'll introspect your real database's data and will generate better values. So I don't know if you saw these things, like here the booking date is 2007, 1986, that's a little bit wild. So what we'll do is we'll introspect your data and we'll generate values within a range that actually is representative of your database. So you'll be able to generate really great synthetic data without having access to production. And that's Snaplet Generate. Yeah, I've got swag and t-shirts and things. Hit me up. They're only size medium. Sorry about that. Are there any questions?
Yes. How coupled to Postgres is this? Can I use it with any? Can I use it with like the real DB file?
We've architected it in a way that it's not only coupled to Postgres, but at the moment it's Postgres only. So we can add support for any other database as soon as we want to. So
Can I add support for other?
we are going to open source it, yes, so you can. Yes. That'd be awesome. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you run? SQL queries, or do you run them?
Yeah, check this out. So you can actually
Can you log them maybe?
dash SQL. Boom, you get the SQL statement out. Just give it a little bit. There you go. There's your SQL. Wow. So you just,
It's not a transaction. Huh?
I don't know. I actually don't know how they insert them into the database, but if you want access to these, you can totally have them. Is that what you mean? But we generate, yeah. I'll show you.
Can I do the questioning while we're switching to the next speaker? Okay. So any more questions?
Does it work like completely offline or?
Yeah, totally. So this synthetic mode will also be like an offline cache state of your database. That's just basically a JSON representation of the data in your database, and then you can have that on your local machine or self-hosted. But we do have telemetry, which you can also disable. We have to.
One more question. For the synthetic mode, do you do some sampling? Like you don't look at all the data of the database, you probably randomly look at some data.
Well, we'll look at all of it. Not
all of it?
Not all of it, but enough of it to make sense. So about 5,000 rows. But for things like numbers, we'll look at min-max, distribution, dates, similar kind of thing. Depends.
Would you look, for example, for is there any node or something like this?
Yeah, totally. And like if you have an enum, we'll pick randomly around those. Like we'll distribute it as equally as possible. Yeah, and it will be deterministic every time you generate the rows, same kind of thing, based on your stage and the configuration.
We're gonna have a break for 5-10 minutes. You can go grab a drink, maybe go
Eat some donuts.
Donuts. And we're gonna come back, okay? In 5-10 minutes. Thank you for helping me.
I'll send you some swag.
Come on this side.
So play that little video.
Is it this one? Yep.
I definitely had a blast and would recommend coming to this event the next time it's on. I'm not sure when they'll be on next, but it is a really good event to meet people who are...
Number 9 of 20, if your phone's gonna ring. Oh, yes, we've got a person, we've got one of those, give them a round of applause.
With some accent, but now most of you think you're from Greece, so I don't have to pretend that I have an accent. I can speak Greek English, okay? And now we can continue to
the CAPA system, the barrier control. So it's quite a complex system. So
Thank you.
It's really cool. Like I learned a lot from them. I also learned a lot from this.
Okay. And now, clap your hands.
I definitely had a blast and would recommend coming to this event the next time it's on. I'm not sure when they'll be on next, but it is a really good event to meet people who
Number 9 of 20, whose phone's gonna ring? Oh, yes! We've got a person, we got winners, give them a round of applause!
With some accent, but now most of you think you're from Greece, so I don't have to pretend that I have an accent. I can speak Greek English, okay? And now we can continue to
The combat system, the barrier control. So it's quite a complex system.
Thank you.
It's really cool. Like I learned a lot from them. I also learned a lot from this.
Okay. And now, clap your hands.
I definitely had a blast and would recommend coming to this event the next time it's on. I'm not sure when they'll be on next, but it is a really good event to meet people who
Number 9 of 20, whose phone's gonna ring? Oh, yes! We've got a person, we got winners, give them a round of applause!
with some accent, but now most of you think you're from Greece, so I don't have to pretend that I have an accent. I can speak Greek English, okay? And now we can continue to
The combat system, the barrier control. So it's quite a complex system.
Thank you.
It's really cool. Like I learned a lot from them. I also learned a lot from this.
Okay. And now, clap your hands.
definitely had a blast and would recommend coming to this event the next time it's on. I'm not sure when they'll be on next, but it is a really good event to meet people who...
Number 9 of 20, whose phone's gonna ring? Oh, yes! We've got a person, we got one. Let's give them a round of applause.
With some accent, but now most of you think you're from Greece, so I don't have to pretend that I have an accent. I can speak Greek English, okay? And now we can continue to
The CAPA system, the barrier control. So it's quite a complex system.
It's really cool. Like I learned a lot from them. I also learned a lot because this is one
Okay. And now, clap your hands.
I definitely had a blast and would recommend coming to this event the next time it's on. I'm not sure when they'll be on next, but it is a really good event to meet people who...
Number 9 of 20, whose phone's gonna ring? Oh, yes! We've got a person, we got one. Let's give them a round of applause.
With some accent, but now most of you think you're from Greece, so I don't have to pretend that I have an accent. I can speak Greek English, okay? And now we can continue to
The CAPA system, the barrier control. So it's quite a complex system.
It's really cool. Like I learned a lot from them. I also learned a lot because this is one
Okay. And now, clap your hands.
Very argumentative can be, but we'll find out. Okay, let's do it.
Thank you. So, first of all, just for me to get a feeling of the audience, so I can tailor my speech to you. Okay, so not many of you are senior developers, which is awesome because this is how to get there. And if you already were senior developers, and I have a principal talk, don't worry. The other thing is, what's your, like, I mean, it's Next.js and Node.js and TypeScript, so what's your tech stack in general? Like, full stack JavaScript, hands up for JavaScript. Okay, what is everyone else doing? Python, Java,
Go,
C++, whoa, nice. Cool. Well, most of this stuff will apply to you as well. Leaving aside the technical implementation, what we're talking about today is, okay, the path to senior developer in 2020 and beyond. We won't do any live coding, but we will talk about something interesting, which is the state of software engineering and the state of software development as an industry, and how you can optimize your career strategy, whatever it is, to maximize your happiness, money, whatever got you into software. First of all, yeah, the game has changed, and if you've been in town, you've seen it. I started coding maybe 2014, 15 professionally, and my brother and I, who's there making pictures, when we came to Berlin, we had a joke that there was this
this scam with a little dog that was coding, and our joke was that if you know React, even that dog can get a job. I don't think I can see that today, right? And if you've been in the market, you know that the market has changed, and the market has changed because of many different things. I like to call it a perfect storm, but we've seen it in 2022. Actually, yeah, roughly a year ago, big tech companies started to kind of lay off people, right? It mainly happened in the US, didn't came to Europe, so we were like, hey, chill out. In Germany, you have your 3 months notice period, so just enjoy the fire up. But it's not something that really stopped in October, right? We are in September, October 2023, November 2023, and some tech companies are still announcing layoffs. I'm talking to people from Snapchat back in the US that are still kind of making layoffs, right? So this thing came, and it came because Google, Amazon, and the fans started the year of efficiency, which is basically the tech companies are moving from prioritizing growth, which will say let's grow, to being more efficient. What does efficient mean if you're an employee? Well, you got to do more with less, right? And this is mainly because of war, inflation, recession, macroeconomic conditions. Doesn't really matter. Companies want to run more for their money. Then COVID-19 happened, remote work. And what happens with remote work is that local talent, companies can now ship outside, right? We haven't seen this at scale, but it is another factor, playing into the fact that the market itself, and I've seen a good study that was comparing the labor market for professions that can be done remotely. It was compared to actually online dating with apps like Tinder, where you have an infinite amount of candidates. And this is what the companies see. There's a lot of noise in the market, because right now, and probably you can pick any full stack JavaScript job in Berlin, you'll see around 20-25% of candidates are coming from the outside, even outside of Europe, right? So remote work means, yeah, it's nice because you don't have to go to the office, but you're also, if you live in Berlin, you compete with people all over Germany, let's say, for now, right? So competition is getting a bit trickier. And then these people came up, end of programming, ChatGPT. We've seen a bit ChatGPT, but it's not even ChatGPT, right? It's coding itself. We are talking about connecting AI directly into a server where you directly bypass the human developer. This was a bit of hype. We haven't seen that happening yet, but we do. It is something that we cannot ignore. And funny enough, on my way here to the conference, I was having dinner with Bogdan, and we were talking about the fact that most developers that we interviewed, that we talked to, they never really used GitHub Copilot and ChatGPT, or maybe they're about to implement it, which for me in 2023 seems like, wow, okay, should have done this 6 months ago. Anyway, AI means, again, more automation, less coders, so more pressure. So yeah, there is a paradigm change in software development, but developers, it's been what people see, it's okay, it's harder to get a job. Okay, my salary is the same as, I was talking to another developer back from East Europe a few days ago, and it's like, I'm making the same money as 3 years ago, and every time I go to the store, the prices go up, right? That's how people see it. The thing is, it's kind of a sum of factors. People are asking themselves, what happened? Is it the layoffs? Well, it's all of these things. It's not only one thing. That was the point, right? So, well, I don't want you to be like this little fella. So don't read the news. Who needs that? This is the result, right? And I don't know how many of you have been looking for a job. Probably a few, because layoffs are not. They can happen to anyone. But if you go to, this is experience there. So you can go to anywhere, especially in the US market, and you will see kind of people struggling to people with, and I'm not talking junior devs, because that was the case. Hey, you're too junior, you don't have enough experience. The average experience that we see is 5 to 7 years experience developers that are most affected by that. What happens? It takes them longer to get a job, and if they find a job, it turns out it was just a project. 6 months, they are back into the market, right? So it's tougher to get longer opportunities. Okay, how is everybody?
Good.
What? Not so happy. Come on. Okay, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. Not really. Come on. The thing is, the more we understand reality, the better we can adapt our strategy to it. Okay. So getting a software job has become harder and harder, and it's taking longer. My question to you is: Have you seen that? Have your friends? Do you agree with that or not?
Yep.
Good. So you're in the right place. Cool. But there is one group of developers that has not been affected by these changes, and this is why they don't come to meetups, because they don't have to. The senior guy. Okay, so senior engineers are weathering the layoffs storm. Well, for now, okay? But if you are a senior dev, it's a bit easier, right? And why is it a bit easier? Because, we will talk about seniority, what seniority is, and that's highly debatable, and everybody has a definition. But in the end, I don't really care. You go to the market, can you get a job with the required compensation you want? You can call yourself senior or not, you made it, right? That's why people learn skills. And yeah, we all love to code, but after 10 years writing code, you want to get paid for it. Cool. So senior people, senior devs have been able to navigate, and actually, we've seen that personally, and we realize that if you're doing everything right, let's say from the standpoint of selling yourself, which we will talk about, and then we're going to talk about technical skills. Probably even in this market, it will take you around 2 to 4 weeks to actually secure an offer that's matching your compensation. Most developers are in between 3 to 6 months. I think that's a big difference. And this is what we're going to talk about today, how to do things right. Now, I can talk about this topic for 8 hours. It's what Bogdan and I have been working on for the last 3 years. I won't have time for that, so you will see that some things are a bit high level. I want to keep them high level. If you want to learn more, you can follow me on LinkedIn. We have a free community where we kind of share all this stuff and we share things to help you out. But let's get going. Okay, without prior experience, you're likely to drain resources and cost the company more than you produce. This is very true for junior developers, which are kind of suffering the most. So it's far more cost efficient to hire seniors or intermediate developers who can start delivering value right away. And this is where our first definition for a senior will come. Senior developer is someone that can deliver value right away. I don't know if you know him. This is Constanti. I know Constanti for a few weeks ago. He runs a recruiting firm here in Berlin, Kaisha. They place a lot of developers, and I was having a chat with him just to. I actually chatted him on not to do a podcast. I was just calling him up to see, hey, is this real? What we are seeing in the market? And he told me this without even knowing that this is what we are working on. Right? Your best bet is to get to senior as soon as possible. Now, there are 2 ways to define seniority. One is relative to the level of skill that people around you have, and the other one is again relative to the market. I would not focus too much on the people around me. I'll focus more on the market. We will talk about this. Who am I to give advice on this? Has anyone seen our YouTube ads? Maybe some of you. Yo, what's up? Yo, this is the guy. I'm alive. So I'm Gavish. I used to be a developer. Actually, my last job, I was working a few blocks away from here, doing full stack JavaScript, more on the front end side. Kind of made it to senior, but 3 years ago, 3 years and a half ago, I left my job to build what was called the driver, which now became the senior.com. Makes sense. And we basically help developers all over the world improve their skills in the most effective way and reach higher levels. People usually come to us for compensation. Other people come to us for confidence, seniority, whatever it is, right? Unfortunately, I don't know why yet, we have more customers in London than in the whole Germany. And we have more customers in the US than in Germany as well. I still don't know yet. We've helped 230 developers in our premium mentorship. And if you follow me on LinkedIn, you probably know me already. Cool. Having a lot of fun. And, I work with my twin brother, which sometimes is fun, sometimes it's not. But it's still family. Cool. So let's go. Let's have some fun. So first, let's define our goal. What is really a senior developer? Question for the audience. Silence in the room. Nice. You're gonna go to YouTube like any good developer, and after seeing my ads, you're gonna find this stuff, which is useless. I think I spent around 6 hours watching these videos, and it's always always this high level advice, which is really classical in tech. It's give some high-level advice, tell people what worked for you, but never really get your hands dirty. And the thing is, when you have a mortgage and when you have a family and when your future depends on that job, man, you need down-to-earth stuff. You need like practical advice. You need A to B. You don't need like, just network and do some side projects and contribute to open source. If you tell that to someone that's like looking for a job in the next 3 months, they're gonna start. Yeah. So, thank you for nothing. Okay, Stack Overflow. You can call yourself a senior. Really upvote the answer. You can call yourself a senior when you can handle the entire software development lifecycle. Cool. Now I need to define what software development lifecycle is and end. Cool. But it's okay. You can lead others, and others look to you for guidance. I mean, this is a tough one, but we can say that. And you can self-manage your projects. I know junior devs that can, deploy to Vercel and, they can self-manage the projects. Doesn't matter they're senior. So, okay, not bad. I mean, it's something. At least it gives us a framework. Sometimes a fresh punk out of college can unsettle around veterans. Programming is a world where code is king. Yeah, this is before AI, but it's okay. It's good enough. And why not? ChatGPT can code. Maybe I'm not gonna read this. I didn't even bother, but you can ask yourself. Deep technical expertise with strong communication and leadership skills, playing a crucial role. Anyway, okay. After 4 years studying senior devs, this is the best definition I found. Okay, someone who has mastered a tech stack, and we will talk about that, and someone that can deliver end-to-end indefinitely. Now, end-to-end indefinitely doesn't mean deploying to Vercel, right? It means being able to deploy more of an enterprise project. Again, I wish I had the time to go in detail in terms of all the skills. What does mastering your tech stack in the terms of JavaScript mean? But this is not the time and the place, and I think we have plenty of stuff for free that you can access going into this. But again, from a company perspective, I believe it's someone who can deliver value from day one. That means no onboarding, no talking to other 5 devs. Someone that can actually scope out things really fast and get hands-on and deliver value. Some myths about getting to senior, doing your job well doesn't make you a senior. And I see it all the time with developers that get fired, and they work really hard. They're like, dude, I did all my tickets, all my reviews were fine, and then I got fired, right? Because maybe you were working on a project that was not important. That extra feature that doesn't bring revenue right now maybe didn't matter. Okay. Years of experience, they do matter. Depends on what you do during those years. If you're just sitting on the chair, things change really fast. And yes, luck can work. So you see it all the time. Senior got fired and they made me a senior. Cool, but it's not. Your skills did not change, and this is what you should care about because you can get lucky, but the question is, will it last? Okay, how do we get there? How is everybody?
Optimistic.
What?
Optimistic.
It's tough to speak to a silent audience, but I can do it.
We're great.
What?
We're great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. What's your name?
Maria.
Maria, thank you so much. ¿Hablas español? That's a Spanish accent.
No,
the common advice goes like this. Okay, there is no magic pill. You need years of experience. So just wait, and someday it will click. Maybe it doesn't, maybe it does. But with things changing so fast, you can't really afford to wait. So this is for people that are not that patient. If you're patient, that's good. Stick around long enough, switch jobs a few times, and maybe you get it. We found out there are certain patterns. So this is what Martin and I do as a senior dev. And the idea is, okay, how can we make it faster? I studied engineering. I studied aerospace engineering. And someone becomes an engineer because they know certain principles. In the case of an aerospace engineer, we're talking about aerodynamics, Newtonian physics. And when you get to software engineering, it's more of, go to meetups, do some online courses, learn the fundamentals, but there is no crystal clear path, right? And this is what we try to solve, okay? And this is what we'll talk about. You can boil these things down to 5 core pillars. And again, I'm gonna keep it high level because I cannot go into detail, but you can investigate, and we have articles, and we go pretty down the rabbit hole if you want to. Number 1, senior developer mindset. That's an easy one. Number 2, fundamentals, especially JavaScript self-taught developers. Number 3, deliver end-to-end. Number 4, AI-driven, because we talked about it. And number 5, selling yourself. How am I doing? How am I doing in terms of time, though? That good?
5 minutes.
So 1 minute per pillar. Okay. Cool. Senior developer mindset. Okay, ownership, responsibility. No. So, the one thing that I want to say here is, if you want, depending on the outcome you want in your life and your career, you need to adjust your beliefs about yourself and the standards that you hold yourself to, right? So I know a lot of developers at the beginning, they live their career and their life in a way up to their employer. I don't know, my boss, my company will pay for my training, or I'll ask my boss for promotion and see, and if they tell me 6 months from now, then I'm gonna wait and see what's up. And I think that's, if you really want to move ahead, that's it's a way to do it, but it's not what you want. You want to take control, right? So number one, ownership. Take responsibility. Hey, where am I at? Where do I want to be? Funny enough, I have calls with developers every week. I think I touched 1,100 people that I talked to one-on-one about their goals. And I think 1% of them had a good understanding of this is where I am and this is where I want to be 6 months, 12 months from now. Compensation, skill development, and why not? Seniority level. And after that, it's all about focus and consistency. Focus, because if you have a full-time job, let's be realistic, how much time can you put into increasing your skills? Okay, and yes, I know when you're a junior, maybe when you start out, you're really excited and passionate, but honestly, after 10 years writing code, who wants to write code on the weekend? You have hobbies, you have a dog, maybe a family, maybe, I don't know, another dog, maybe a cat, who knows? But you have things to do on the weekend, which are not, compiling JavaScript. Okay, so whatever it takes. Homework, define what you want, why you want it, and put in place an accountability system. I don't know how many people have accountability systems in place, but if you look at all the top athletes, everywhere, they have a full team behind them keeping them accountable. Because who wants to wake up and do all that stuff? Anyway, we have action items, and we talk a lot more about that in our community, and all that stuff is free, so you can sign up. There will be a QR at the end of the code. How many minutes left? That was 5 minutes. 3. Okay. These are the books, but you can approach me afterwards. You can take a picture of the slide. We recommend this to everybody that joins our program. Really useful stuff. You can read it in a weekend. And maybe it changes your perspective. Maybe it gives you one good idea. Who knows? Better than Netflix. Okay, fundamentals. When you first start to study a field, it seems like you have to memorize 1,000 things. You don't. You need to identify the core principles that govern the field. This is a funny one. Because IT, there is object-oriented programming, there is functional programming, there are common shared programming paradigms, but in the end, if you're a JavaScript developer, you need to have a lot of knowledge about the JavaScript platform itself. So there are some core principles, but they are also highly specific to the field you're at, right? And this is why, after 3 years in doing this, we still focus on JavaScript developers. We did not branch out into Java, even if we could have. And also because we like to focus. We have to go from, that shouldn't be there. 3 types of fundamentals. Number one, computer science fundamentals, super important for people that didn't study a computer science degree, which, by the way, most of it is crap. This includes the useful part of computer science degree, data structures and algorithms, as well as basic computer networking. In the European market, about 10%, maybe 20 right now, percent of the companies will actually interview on data structures and algorithms. So you don't need 6 months of crunching lead code. If this would be the US market, even the most basic CSS developer has to go through data structures algorithms interview. Still, we don't know. Okay, even if ChatGPT can solve them better and faster than we can, they are still part of the interview. So you will have, if that's your weak point, you'll have to get a base of that. I'm going to recommend some books too. Language fundamentals, they depend on your tech stack, but this is basically knowing JavaScript beyond React. If you've been doing only React, Vue, or whatever, it's really going deeper into scope, into promises, into asynchronous programming, really knowing this stuff, because not only in interviews, but the depth of the things that you're being required to do just got bigger, right? The stuff that we see right now in technical interviews, you didn't even think about it 5 years ago. Framework fundamentals. So let's take React as an example, but it's more than React, right? It's basically understanding, hey, what are the design patterns behind those frameworks? There's a bunch of them if we talk about React, there's a bunch of them if we talk about Vue, but it's a good idea to abstract those patterns and have them as a let's say, framework agnostic toolkit for you. Those are the books. Actually, I think, JavaScript Ninja, Bogdan has the JavaScript Ninja book on his desk every day, just in case still. Super well, programming TypeScript, it's okay. But the JavaScript Ninja and the cooking algorithms are books that all our mentees have to buy. Cool, deliver end-to-end. This is a tough one. So the thing here is, I would say 80% of the JavaScript developers start out in the front end, right? So JavaScript developers, JavaScript was a purely client-side language, and then we made it server-side in Node.js. But what I mean is the bigger gap that we see with people that start in the front end, it's of course backend, and I don't mean just building an Express REST API, but I mean proper backend engineering and then infrastructure, right? And what we see right now in the market is that actually the front-end developer is becoming either a full-stack engineer that can actually go deeper into the backend, or is becoming a really specialist front-end engineer that goes even deeper, like topics like accessibility, things that maybe a very senior engineer was required to know back in the days. So if you want to stay front-end, you gotta get really deep. If not, you have to go full-stack. Yeah. And the market will push you there. So it doesn't matter. Like the market is moving there, and people will move towards that direction. And if you move into the full stack, well, there is basically backend, and there is infrastructure, and there is a bit of architecture, which should be my last stop because it's way too abstract at the beginning. System design interview. If you're interviewing fundamentals of software architecture, it's good, still high level. And clean architecture, the best thing out of clean architecture and all the Uncle Bob stuff, if you're familiar with the dude, it's solid principles. And solid principles for JavaScript developers, they look like a set of 5 principles that you have to memorize. But if I give you a React code base and I ask you to optimize it, the only mental structure, the only mental way, it's solid, applied solid principles to JavaScript code. That's the only proper way you could go about it. So they do matter. And I was a hater. When I was writing code for the first 5 minutes, I was like, come on, Uncle Bob, I'm a JavaScript developer. You wrote these nice books a few years ago, and why should I care? Well, it turned out I was wrong. So, okay, end-to-end delivery. Cool, AI-driven. I think this is way too far away to talk about it. This was generated by Midjourney. And yeah, AI models are prone to failure. This is big in maybe in the Bay Area right now. All the startups you see are, some startup that kind of automates coding. But I think it's a bit too early for you to think in terms of AI skills, but definitely in your mid-term vision should be having some kind of AI proficiency. A lot of people are learning Python, but if the predictions come true, why are you learning Python? You should learn how to think about deep learning, how to think about AI. Python, just like JavaScript, will just be a low-level language, right? So there are 3 stages to this. I have a deep dive into this thing, but number 1, it's integration. Yeah, using Copilot, using ChatGPT, using whatever else out there. Then what everyone is talking about in the next couple of years is the second part, which is the AI tech lead, where basically the developer is more of a curator of code that was written by AI. We will see how that looks like. Honestly, I don't even know. And the last stage is AI-driven thinking, where basically, we're just training models. There are no developers, and everybody in this room is going to be doing something else. I don't know. I think what most people, if you read the articles in the Valley about AI and the end of coding, I think what most people get wrong is the timeline. Like people talk about it like it would happen in 6 months from now. Maybe it takes a decade, maybe 2, maybe 3. So I wouldn't freak out too much about AI at the moment, but I would use the tools, use Copilot every day. Okay, and even if in some code interviews they'll tell you cannot use it, knowing how to use it, the developers we work with, we even put like GPT and Copilot in the CV, right? Okay, number 1, selling yourself, because if not, you can be a great coder. And I know a lot of starving artists in Berlin. You're just another one of them. If you can't sell your skills, perception, it's reality. People don't know you, don't know how amazing you are, don't know your GitHub, doesn't really matter. They judge you by the things they can see. And when you go to the job market, they judge you by your LinkedIn and they judge you by your CV. Out of way time wasters, depending on your timeline to find a job, if it's 3 to 6 months, things like, just run a Google. If you run a Google search, it's like there's so many things that are myths in the tech industry, like contribute to open source. But what junior mid-level developer can contribute to open source? They don't even know the solid principles. Maybe they can do a bit of documentation. Of course, maybe they can extend some code, but it's something that you should do when you're employed, not when you're looking for a job. When you're looking for a job, you should focus on your CV and LinkedIn. Nobody cares about your GitHub, and just do two things, which is get good at getting interviews, standing out, and doing tech interviews, and that's it. Okay, I know developers that make way above 100K a year in the European market and don't have a blog, and they won't have one because they don't like to write, they only like to code. Okay, yeah, this is the concept. Who did this? Sphinx, I think. Anyway, the lab surface area. Basically, I mean, it's telling and doing, right? So just do stuff and tell people about it. Again, I think as developers, the thing is, well, as engineers and developers, we are analytical. So whenever someone like me comes and tells you something or says, it's like, oh no, just show me the thing. Show me the thing. I want to see what's inside it, right? We only get a computer, we take it down, and we see what's inside it. And the thing is, sales and when you're in a position where you have to differentiate from other people around you, that mindset doesn't really work, right? And what I mean is just become a lot more worried about your professional image and what you're putting out there. Okay, great books. I mean, Cal Newport, it's okay. I like it. Average book. How to Influence and Influence People. It's a bit old. I'll just ask ChatGPT about the summary. Getting to yes. You don't need a PhD in negotiation from Harvard to negotiate your salary as a developer, but you need to be aware of certain negotiation tactics. The best negotiation is great skills and a great CV. Okay, that will stand the test of time. It's having another offers. With that being said, just summary for you. Method structure, just grade yourself from 1 to 10, wherever you're at. And in the end, senior is not about your title, salary level, number of frameworks you know. It's a way of thinking. And this is more of a question than a statement. But I thought this is a nice way of finishing the slides. Thank you so much. If you want to sign up, feel free. We have a free community where we talk a lot more about this. And yeah, just see you around Berlin. Questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, Maria?
Yeah,
Sure.
that's correct. Yeah, I have a question. Like, it was great, a great article. Thank you very much. But it was mostly like from perspective of a developer, yeah. And for example, companies also have expectation from a senior developer. Like, for example, one point, like at least 5 years of experience. And you can like do great things, have a great projects, have I don't know blogs, etc., but they won't consider if you don't have at least 5 years of experience. So what do you think about like this expectation, and what should we do in terms of engineers, like from our perspective, like to our CV, like we have 5 years, like draw some new projects and etc. So what about this expectation and how we should react for it?
Yeah, so there are two sets of expectations, right? Number one, after you get hired, which is I need to deliver at a level.
Before, of course.
Before it's much harder, right? After you kind of,
you need to adapt.
Yeah, you need to adapt, and you can kind of pull it through, right? Before that, right? And there's two cases here. I would not, in the moment you talk about side projects and stuff like that, and okay, maybe giving a tech talk, but we talk about that, like nobody will hire you. Will go through the same. The funny part is like even if you have tech talks, even if you have open source, you will go through the same interview process like everyone. So it doesn't really matter, and that's why I would focus on number one, interviewing skills. Number two, a lot of recruiters are chronologically oriented, so they'll look at your CV and they'll be like, yes, you have 3 years experience. There are several ways to go about that, right? And a lie, it's not a binary thing. It's like, are you lying 60% or are you lying 80%? Depending on how desperate you are, you will have to decide for yourself. Okay, what I would do, it's actually what we do with people that don't have that much experience, is to incorporate everything that you did to kind of mash up that side project experience, right? Because this is really easy, and a lot of developers will face that. Sorry, it's my last one, and then I bounce. For example, you're a JavaScript developer, you're working with jQuery. I know people in banks in London still working with jQuery, and the whole market is working with TypeScript. They don't have any TypeScript experience. The bank doesn't let them even install anything on their computer. So how you do that? You do a side project in TypeScript, and you add that into your current work experience. So your last position should reflect who you are, right? And I can talk about this half an hour, but again, it's the way you think about your CV. Your CV is not built for you, it's not like a git commit of everything you've done. It's more of a marketing coupon for the company. So if they, when they look at the job offer and when they look at you, they go, okay, it's a match. So you have to think from their perspective. And there are, 5-6 ways you can go about it. I cannot go into depth right now in it, but sign up to the community and I'll make a video about it, depending on how dirty you want to be. Cool. Thank you so much. Enjoy the conference.
I definitely had a blast and would recommend coming to this event the next time it's on. I'm not sure when they'll be on next, but it is a really...
It's a database talk. Daniel here, he came from Sao Paulo. So give him a big... We've done 2 editions of Cityjs in Sao Paulo. It was quite an experience, a very good experience actually. Look, people come in Europe from Sao Paulo now because of Cityjs. So yeah, Daniel.
Thanks. Today I'm going to be talking about database a little bit beyond on the basics that is teached on courses and beyond markets. And something that I started to study on the beginning of this year, okay? But before that, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Daniel Reis. I'm a Brazilian. I have 24 years old, and also known as Daniel Hart on the internet. On this development stuff since I was 11, and well, it was quite off time. I started by developing private servers for games like Grand Chase, Ragnarok, and a few other ones. Most part of the time, I'm being streaming at Twitch TV by doing live coding sessions, learning and creating content on whatever I want. Most part of the time about database now. And previously, I was talking about that language that died a few years ago. What was about to die? The PHP. But I still did it, and we're there. I work as a developer advocate at Cityjs. I'm also a fast database that is integrated at a few companies, small companies like Discord. And on my free time, I really like to do some musician stuff. I play a few instruments like classical guitar, violin, violoncello, and also did a few years of singing lessons. So if you have an idea of a carabiner here, let me know, okay? So let's skip into our agenda. I would like to do some keywords that you're probably going to see on this talk. And I'm going to be going to do this very quickly because, well, we don't have much time. So first, we're going to do a short story on how and why you need to understand more about databases and some usages and understand a few problems that you might solve with that, not by only using Mongo or Postgres to solve everything, okay? With that, we're going to jump into database theorems, one's very specific, and also database paradigms. So we're going to just check some information and see what we can do next, that you can just jump in some rabbit hole and check it out by yourself. So, okay, let's start with a simple story about a developer, a very specific one, called Aris, a mid-level developer, a super saiyan developer actually. And Aris, he works in a company called Discord. And the first stack that Discord used was Node.js with MongoDB. And Aris was really cool with this stack. So Aris also worked in a team that handled all of the messages on the Discord center. So all of that servers that received all of these messages started with Mongo, but he knew that the company was growing, the server was starting to get more and more users, and the CEO was really he was good with that. But what the CEO doesn't know is that Aris did a few gambiarras, also known as workarounds, to make the server work with MongoDB handling millions of requests. So he did a few good job on the back end, but well, it's a debit that it needs to be handled. So basically, now it has to do a POC to switch the node or even the database to a new data to a new database that will handle all of these requests, because now Discord is handling billions of messages. So how we do that, how we can figure it out, which database we can use for that. And well, there's so many databases that you can just try. So how we can find the best match? And there's 400 databases today on this DB engine ranking, and you can just go there and check by yourself. And Oracle is still on the top. Well, even my company is not here, but we're talking about that. So where to start? Like, I'm just a super CN dev. So first, we need to understand which problem you want to solve. So if you want something that will have a fast request, you want something to bring less of 1 millisecond request, probably you're going to need to work with a white column database or something like that, or working systems that focus on this fast requests like VoIP, IoT, streaming, and things regarding to that. So if latency is one of your problem, probably you're going to need to switch to a specific database. And one very specific thing that is on the Dragon Ball from PS1, every time that it was loading a scenario, it has a mini game for that you just need to get off these many daggers while the scenario was loading. And this is not something acceptable today on most part of the games. So you're probably going to need a split database to load all of these assets. So it's one of the main problems today, latency. But you also have the input-output. Maybe you don't have to do this request faster to fetch all of the data, but you probably need some higher throughput. You need to add a lot of data at the same time. So if you have an application that has 10K requests per second, it's okay to keep into Mongo or even MySQL or something like that. But if you have some application that has 1 million requests per second, maybe, just maybe, you will need to change your environment from Mongo to something else. Actually, Mongo can handle it, but when you scale it up, it's probably going to cost a lot of money. So this is also one of the points that we're going to enter right now. Because all of database hosted in clouds, it costs a lot of money. You can also host on your vendor, but at the same time, there's a few clouds that provides you more infrastructure that you probably can handle by yourself. So when you're trying to solve a problem with database, you always need to check about the cost issues and also the data model changes. So if you're using Mongo and now you have to switch to a relational, probably you're going to need some more time to study this and how to migrate all of this data to an environment that will be helpful for your projects. Okay, so this is a few problems that you might want to solve by switching database, and this needs to get in discussion with your dev team before you start to do a POC. Okay. Well, we have among any other problems, but let's attach with this. Okay, so let's talk about something very cool called the cafeteria. Eric Brower just brought this idea in just we're bad with numbers, but this year. And this idea was just to points that you have to choose among two of these three states, which is consistency, availability, and partitioning. And your database will be focusing on that. And this will be something very specific that will point if your system will have a consistency on the data, like if you only going to be attaching data based on a schema that you're going to put, like MySQL, you have to add the data correctly on the schema that you added, or like Mongo that you just can add a few JSONs or JSONs there, and it will work perfectly. So this theorem just brought this, and also if you're going to scale it up, this server, and how easy it will be to be replicating all of this data among many data centers. So this is a common concern. So if a database just went offline, you have to fetch this data from some other source and not let your application go down. And you cannot have all of this on one database. Actually, you can, but it's going to be expensive, and probably is not the best answer for your project, for your product. Okay, so you need to choose two of these three. So as you can see, on the consistency availability side, you have MySQL, you have Vertica. On the availability, on partition tolerance, you have ScyllaDB, which is the database that I work today, and Cassandra, Amazon DynamoDB, among others. And on the CNP, we have the MongoDB and HBase. Okay, so it's just idea that these database, they solve different problems based on the CAP theorem, and this is very nice to know because if you're using some database like Mongo and you want to stay on the problem that it solves, now you have knowledge to know exactly which type of database you want to look for. Okay. And now we're going to jump into the database paradigms, starting with the most basic one and probably most easy to learn, which is the key value using the Redis or Memcache. So you have some simplicity into implementation. You have a really good performance on that, and you can store whatever you want. So basically, it has a huge string that you're going to add into a key, and how you're going to parse this, well, it's up to you. You can evaluate this or just simply use as a flags to your application at all, okay? But it's also have some negative points. So if you have complex queries, probably is not what you're looking for, and it depends on your memory and your memory to get a good performance. So if you don't have a good RAM and a good storage, it will not be fast as you think, and probably will not bring something like that. So it costs a lot on the hardware parts, and there's no data consistency. So since it's just a string that you're going to evaluate, maybe will be there something that will be broken, or some data that when you evaluate will not bring whatever you want. So you need to know exactly why the key value will be helpful for you. Okay. The second one, the white column, as you can see, there's a bunch of Scylla mascots here. I didn't do that, but it's really close to the relational on how you write queries. So you can do insert, select, update, and delete, create tables. And instead you're creating database, you create key spaces. And you also can do a replication factor, which is basically when you insert a data, for how many nodes you're going to replicate this. So if this node fail, you can just fetch from this other node. It's also known as node ring. And it's really good if you have high levels of throughput, like 1 million requests per second, 10 million requests per second. All of requests were made to be below one millisecond. It's totally wrong here. And the partition tolerance just gives you the idea of if you have any problem with some nodes on your database, you can fetch from some other nodes, so your data will be there. And the schema flexibility gives you a highly usability to create your new schemas, and it's kind of cool. But it also has some negative points, like on the case of white column, you follow developing based on queries. So you need to specify which query you need to be solving. So if you're going to do a small query, less than one KB or 2 KB, it's going to be a good thing. But if you don't know what exactly you're going to fetch, probably you're not going to be doing a good usage for that. If you want to do complex queries like using joins, white column is not for you because it's just to retrieve some data based on clustering. And well, we don't have that. And probably you're going to be using for the large scale systems. So the white column is really good to be used on the system that you have really good throughput, but if you have like 10K requests per second, I don't think that is going to be a good fit. Okay. Document one. Yeah, Mongo. Well, we have this dynamic schema. You can just add whatever you want. It will be working as expected. You can do complex data modeling. You can have these higher inputs outputs per second, and it's adopted by most of the beginners here on the community, and has a lot of tutorials on internet that will help you or your junior developer to be learning about how to use that. But at the same time, it's not suitable for all the cases. Sometimes you're going to need to add some consistency to know which data want to retrieve. And at the same time, how you're going to replicate this from one node for another? How you're going to attach all of these changes? If you start to think, maybe if we have different tables or places to be replicating, it's is more easier. It's easier to be replicating this data. Since Mo is just a huge JSON slash JSON, it's complex to be replicating every time that you add something new, because it's always a huge chunk of code. And it has a complexity for a few queries. So for small systems, medium, I think that's a good thing. But when it's scaled up, I think that you can choose something else. Now the relational one. Well, MySQL, Postgres, MariaDB, and among others, has some data consistency, is a strongly one, where you have to shape it, your schema, in the way that it needs to be. And if you add anything wrong there by the data type, it will throw you an error. And some other paradigms, it doesn't even happen. You need to know whatever you're adding there. And it's kind of easy to do maintenance, but at the same time, it's kind of complex because you need to do a bunch of pickups. And the transactions just made everything good enough to you. Made some mistakes and just roll back everything. So it's awesome. And it's also adopted for most of the beginners on the Java, PHP, and C# environments, also Python. But if you have to store huge amounts of data, it will be a problem. You have no flexibility on data modeling. So if you define it that that's a table, you have to do an alter and then start to use that, and it will have a hole into your data probably, and you need to fulfill that somehow. And if you have thousands or millions of data, it will be a huge problem itself. And scalability costs more than you want to pay. So if you want to scale a MySQL or a relational one, yeah, it's going to be expensive. And I think that's it. We have the graph paradigm. So if you're just a consumer timeline for any socials, they're using probably Janus or Neo4j, you can do complex querying. Actually, I never did something like that before. I used it in Neo4j once and I got beat it. I don't plan to go again for that. But when you try to get large queries, it has a great performance. But at the same time, if you're dealing with billions of records, maybe you can do something else. And scalability also turns into a problem. So if you don't have knowledge to do these complex queries, it's also going to be a problem as well. And if you have simple queries, I think that you can just go with relational. Doesn't need to do this. Anyway, so we have the search engine as well. If you have a full text indexing, like you're trying to figure out some keywords, it will be answering for you. And it's extremely low because it will go for this text full text indexing, and the only thing that it will be retrieving is text. And so if you're going to search engines or documentations or whatever that has a search bar, I think that's, if your code base is easy enough, you can go for this search engine and try Elasticsearch. But at the same time, if you have complex queries, not a good thing. And if you have to process non-textual search queries, it's also not recommended at all, okay? And the last one, the multi-paradigm, it's in Portuguese, multi-paradigm. So you can merge all of these different database paradigms in one database. It's less tooling for you and your team to learn about how to handle your projects, and has multiple approaches to solve a problem. But at the same time, well, I think that maybe have more than one database is benefic, because this multi-paradigms database, most part of the time, has not so much people using, so you probably will not find enough tutorials, and it will be something hard to implement. And it's less tooling, but it's more work to understand. And that brings some negative points. So it's the jack of all trades, master of none. You have 3 different paradigms inside one database. Which one is your focus? So which one is going to be the best fit for you, what you want to do? And how the database was planned to work, it will define which problem it will solve. So if you want to I don't know, use Scila and MongoDB for something, probably you need to know why Scila is built on and why Mongo is built for solve something. And well, all of databases can solve the same thing, but in the different ways. And when you go to the multi-paradigm, it can be something kind of different when you're going to implement something. Recently, I was working with DynamoDB. I'm just doing some migration system for that. And it's a really cool database, but it's a lot expensive. So most part of the companies try to jump into Dynamo because it's easier to use, but when it's scaled up, it becomes expensive, and they try to move on to another tooling. I mean, Dynamo, it's amazing. It solves a lot of problems, but there's a problem that you cannot easily solve, which is how much it will cost. So it's also one of the biggest problems. And it solves the problem, which is basically latency or high throughput or a few other ones, but you have better approaches to do that. Well, probably you're going to be checking some other things that will be impacting on your development, like the drivers compatibility. If your language has compatibility with, I don't know, MongoDB or ScyllaDB or Amazon DynamoDB or any of it, and which type of indexing that database will use to retrieve the data. It's also something very important. How much it's going to cost in a period of time, like 3 months or 6 months or a year, with a very specific data that you have, probably how many requests per second you're using, and on. So you have a few other things that you might check. And that was my talk. Just wanted to show that database is something beyond by just start to using Mongo or MySQL or MariaDB or whatever. And when you're becoming a full stack developer, these things maybe will be important to know. Okay, so you can find me on the socials and Daniel Hart in all of this, and I hope that you guys enjoyed. That's it.
While we're fixing.
Any question?
How would you compare CytyJs with Bigtable?
I definitely had a blast and would recommend coming to this event the next time it's on. I'm not sure when they'll be on next, but it is a really good event to meet people who are...
Number 9 of 20, whose phone's gonna ring? Oh, yes, we've got a person, we got one. Let's give them a round of applause.
With some accent, but now most of you think you're from Greece, so I don't have to pretend that I have an accent. I can speak Greek English, okay? And now we can continue to
the combat system, the barrier control. So it's quite a complex system.
It's really cool. Like I learned a lot from them. I also learned a lot from this.
Okay, and now clap your hands.
definitely had a blast and would recommend coming to this event the next time it's on. I'm not sure when they'll be on next, but it is a really good event to meet people who
Number 9 of 20, whose phone's gonna ring? Oh, yes, we've got a person, we got one. Let's give them a round of applause.
With some accent, but now most of you think you're from Greece, so I don't have to pretend that I have an accent. I can speak Greek English, okay? And now we can continue to
The combat system, the barrier control. So it's quite a complex system.
It's really cool. Like I learned a lot from them. I also learned a lot of this from Cityjs.
Okay? And now, clap your hands.
For the tech people, can I move or is that camera like?
You can move.
Yeah, you can.
Hi everyone. It's gonna be really short, 5 minutes probably. A little bit
I
more.
don't think he
I'm
shared
Tejas,
his screen
that's
properly.
pronounced like contagious. And I have a small agency that helps a bunch of companies with developer relations.
This is your
Developer relations
citizenship.
is that it's like teaching people how to use your thing, or improving your thing, or using your thing, and we give them feedback on that. Anyway, so I don't work at Builder Item, I don't work for Builder Item. They're just friends. And today I want to talk to you about a tool that nobody has heard of. Wow, I was touching my life.
We need to go to stream here.
I'm already here.
No, but you don't show your screen. Sorry.
That's okay. But
The
he said,
initiative.
he said he found it.
Yeah, but it was a different screen.
Present. Sorry, dude.
It's okay.
The technical team.
Good.
I can see myself. Look at that.
Oh, great.
Whoa! Okay, cool. I think it's working. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So tool that probably nobody's heard about, but I think you should. Part of the reason is I live here in Berlin, and I feel some type of obligation to the tech community here. How many of you live in Berlin? Okay, most of you. Yeah. So great. I want to talk to you about a tool that I've been using. And that I think is pretty great. Full disclosure, they're clients of mine as well, and I only choose to work with the best. So I think it's a really great product, and I'd like to show that to you today. I'm trying not to do a sales, but frankly, I don't give a shit. Can I swear? He's like, what? I don't care if you use it, if you don't. I just want you to know that this exists and it's available, and it completes somewhat of the landscape of developer tools available to you. Okay, that tool is called Keel, K-E-E-L. How many of you have heard of Keel? What? Oh, Rachel. Okay, yeah, Rachel and Till, friends of mine, of course. I'm surprised, but you know they get the friend stuff. Anyway, Keel is like Prisma, where Prisma is very schemaful and very model based. You define your models and so on. Keel sort of builds on this, where with Prisma it's an ORM where you bring your own database. Keel, you write a schema, and you git push your schema, and that schema becomes infrastructure. Becomes a database, becomes an API, becomes an authentication layer, authorization layer, all of that just exists out of the blue. And so it's like Prisma in the sense that it's schema driven, but that schema then becomes your infrastructure. It's fully managed for you. You can scale pretty big, and it's open source, so you can also self-host it if you don't want to do that, right? So there's no vendor lock-in. In fact, it was open sourced today because I was like, there's no way I'm talking about your stuff at Meetup unless you open source it. So you're welcome. I want to show you that briefly, and then we can go drink some stuff. Not alcohol for me, I just don't like that. So, all right, what we're going to do is start from absolutely zero. We have the Keel CLI installed, version 0. whatever, and we're going to make a directory. Let's make a Meetup app, and we'll cd into Meetup app. It's literally empty. This is the first time doing everything, and also demos don't work, so have grace if things fail. We'll run Keel init. and it generates some files, specifically gitignore, schema.keel, and keelconfig.yaml. We're interested in the schema, just like Prisma, right? We're interested in this thing, which is empty. And so it does have a schema definition language, or an SDL, similar to Prisma, that you may have to learn. But I think if you know Prisma, it's pretty similar. So you define a model. And we're making a Meetup app. So what does a Meetup app have? It has events. So we'll do model event. And this is all fully type safe. They've literally designed like a TypeScript extension for you. So what do events have as fields? In fields, events have maybe a name. They have a date. Why not? And they have a created by, like who's the host? Let's call it host. And host is a built-in identity type. That's a user. Keel gives you authentication, authorization as well. So great. This is the extent of which it's like Prisma. You define a model with some fields. However, with Keel, you can do a little bit more. And by the way, the Keel is not better than Prisma. Prisma is not, it's not like that. We're not playing those games. These are different tools that solve different problems. Okay. Keel is for people who have absolutely no infrastructure. Prisma is an ORM for people who have databases. It's very different problems. So once you define your fields, you can then define actions that you can do on those fields. For example, I want to list type action, and I want to say get all events. That's it. And now when I git push this, it's going to become like API. It's nuts. Get is another type of action for specific things. So I can get event by ID, for example, and that's the argument. I can create an event, so make event. And here I say I make an event with a name and a date, right? But it's going to yell at me because it's like, what about host? And so then I can say, after you create it, set the event's host to context.identity. So to me, the context, the user, the context is a global. Okay. So this is pretty cool because it's thinking about authorization and authentication from step 0. And it's like, okay, you can't just create an event without assigning an owner. So you set the owner to yourself. And finally, just for posterity, we'll do a delete. And we can enforce the delete is only allowed, we can say a permission, we can only allow a delete where the current user is the event host. Exactly this, but there's no double quotes. GitHub Copilot for some reason thinks we need this string. But so we can say you can only delete an event where the host is me. Finally, we need to kind of give blanket permissions because we can't really read or write anything by default. It's super closed. So we'll do one final directive, permission. And here we can say, for these actions, list, get, create. For these actions, I want you to be able to do that only if the context is authenticated. So you have to be logged in to do these things. It's going to fail if you don't do these things. This is a very basic Keel schema, but it's not just an object with fields. It's an object with fields and things you can do. You can also compose objects into each other, kind of like Prisma. I think you get the idea. Okay, so this is a schema. How do we make it work? Well, using the Keel CLI, we can do Keel run. So like locally, it's going to set up a database. It's going to like make sure everything's valid. I can already query my database with this command. Once it checks that everything's fine, it should give me not 1, but 3 APIs out of the box. This step does take a little bit of a while. I don't think it'll take that long, but it's interesting because I don't even have functions here. Nice weather we're having. Huh? Okay, so it's done. And it does the schema validation. It migrates the data and also generates functions. We don't have time to talk about functions. So we do have some API endpoints, including a GraphQL playground. I can come here and notice I've got a query list all events. Let's actually make sure that's right by using some auto-completion here. Do I have error fetching schema? Great, let's just rebuild this. And it might, okay, cool. It's faster the second time. Let's check the docs. What? That's a bit unfortunate, isn't it? Okay, maybe, I don't know why that's happening. Anyway, whatever. Locally, I have APIs, trust me. But what I want to show you is how quickly I can deploy this as full scalable backend infrastructure. There's a command, keel deploy. I fully expect this not to work because they're not generally available. They're not launched. It's beta. This was a proof of concept. But in theory, I type the name of my project, Meetup, from the schema. And it just, oh, whoa, what's the problem? Pushing to GitHub, oh my goodness. It's not a Git repository. That error should be nicer, I think. Maybe that's also why the API didn't work. We'll add this, we'll commit, initial commit. Okay, cool. This looks good. Let's try that again. Keel deploy. And now, I mean, if I type the name of my project, it still doesn't work. Brilliant. I don't know why. One more time. Okay, yeah, it works. Weird. Just didn't like the word meetup. So it doesn't always make a repo. I think that's too magical, right? This is just a very happy case. Obviously, you should choose: do I want a repo? Do I have a repo, etc. This is like the fast lightning talk mode. Okay, this isn't very useful. So I deployed it to the cloud. I come here, and now I see the Keel console where it's building my commit. And what specifically is it building? Well, it builds my functions, my schema, etc. And it's deploying things, kind of just from git push. And you might be thinking, okay, what is it deploying? Well, I get a database that has the type of data that I wrote down here. And I have an API explorer where it's fully documented. Like, these are the things from my schema: get event by ID, make event, delete event, etc. I can authenticate here by creating a user. I'll create if not exists yes, and I'll be like Cityjs at cityjs.org. It's not a real email, just FYI. Don't actually send me emails there. That's a good idea. So I'll make this account, save. And now, literally come here, I can make an event, and I can test this. I can go run this. What date? Let's say it's on the 3rd of whatever, and we'll say it's Cityjs Berlin. Submit. And I created data in my database. It's a database, and I can get all my events. I go run this, submit the query, and I have it. Name Cityjs Berlin, date, etc. I can even query this now with GraphQL, with RPC, with curl, however I want. It's kind of nuts. If I go look in my database, and if I look in event, it's there with the host ID, which is 2xAW, whatever that is in the identity table. That's me. It's connected, and we have full ownership. We have a relational model. We have authentication, authorization. If I go in the API Explorer, for example, and I'm not authenticated, and if I try to make an event, it's going to yell at me. So I'll do something like this and choose this. It's going to be like, yeah, you failed, forbidden, right? So it just from a single file. I have all of this, and it kind of sends me. And not only that, like, I have monitoring. Like, I can look at all my requests, which ones are failing, which ones are succeeding, how long is each request taking. I have full tracing on this from the API level to the database, and like all of this from what? All of this from a single file. Nuts, absolutely nuts. So I've been very impressed with this product. I've been using it for a number of things. There are some rough edges because it's not yet fully launched, but in all of I've been using it about 90 minutes a day, every day. And I have to say, it's wildly impressive how much polish there is for something that's not even on the market yet. Also, you can have multiple environments like staging, production. And when you're building a product at scale, at some point your database changes. You have a pull request with migrations. You merge that into main, and Keel will migrate your database, 0 downtime, because it uses Postgres and Neon under the hood. So very, very impressive. I wanted to share that with you just out of obligation. So now you know that exists and that's available to you. I think it's private beta, but they're going to launch soon-ish. It's the website, and you can get early access here. I've spoken to the people who build it, and they are offering access to people who have real projects to build, not like a to-do example, but like you think about a business, you maybe have a place in your business, you may be working at a consultancy and you have new clients coming in and you want to try it. They will prioritize it for you, access, and they will also, they say, we'll build your backend for you for free to teach you. So that's available to you. I just wanted to let you know that, and that's the talk. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions?
Awesome. I mean, I just from the can you decouple from Keel, or is the whole idea is that you?
That's Postgres under the hood. So
but what about the function on or what does it create? When you do Keel push deploy, it will create you all your infra files, your Terra stuff, or Terraform stuff, or?
Yeah, correct. So so let me show you. So if I say I have a function, so these CRUD operations automatically become an API. But if I do something like read, get something, right? I actually haven't worked with this. Returns. Wow, look at that. Returns, is that the way? No. Wow, that's so wild. I don't even know how this works. But it's in the doc. Wait, let me see if I can do function get thing. Okay, no. Oh wait, I have an idea. At function. Yeah. So I say this is a function now. This is not. Don't make an API endpoint, right? And I'll come to the CLI and go heal generate. And here it just generates TypeScript files.
Okay.
Which is kind of like in Next.js, you export handler and you get request response, right? That's kind of what happens. So I now generated this for me, and this is my function, and I can go in here and before query, I get some arguments, and I can just basically.
You can have custom logic.
Correct. I can do whatever I want. I can query ChatGPT, get some completion. Okay, so this is the way.
But like the end result is like, I mean, like Next.js or this one is like, you will have to deploy in kill, right, in the platform.
Yes.
And you cannot like
eject
exactly and get your infra files and blah blah blah, and then you deploy in.
Correct. However, it is open source, so there's some elements of lock-in still with that, and that you can eject. But you can from day one go like, you know what, I'm hosting this on my own EC2.
This is pretty cool for POCs, but once I need to go to an MVP and then go to the next level, I most probably depending on price and all of that stuff, it's very difficult to follow on.
But why would you need to, when you're at the next level, like go to? I mean, their whole thing is kind of like, I really like Superbase, for example, is marketing, right? Build on a we can scale to millions. I don't know if that's true. I've never scaled a Superbase product to millions, but that's kind of the vibe. They want you to stay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay. So yeah, I want to say again, I thank you to the sponsors.
Oh, can I add one thing?
Yes,
I just want to mention I also sponsored the conference as a bronze sponsor.
yes, he's
Wow, it's an honor. It's fun. It's fun.
But this is gonna be to learn in London. I think you're gonna come to London, right?
That's right.
So you need to come to London the next time. And yeah, he's a true sponsor of community events, right? Yes, and because we're a community, the prices are very low, and we get the money from the sponsors to keep these prices low. So I just have to read it. So content full story blog, bonnet, Metis, AWS of Zero. We're gonna have some stickers on Friday, which is from Sticker Mule, and Prisma and all the other community partners. And yes, who's ready for another drink? And we can talk a bit more about Kill and Builder.io, right?
Yes,
take
why
your
not?
stuff.
Anything.
Tomorrow we have some workshops that involve a bit of, sponsor stuff, but they do involve some learning. So it's good for you to come, it's free. So you don't have to pay. So if you want to learn Next.js, web components, about using headless CMS with Astro. So maybe you want to come there and learn in Motion Lab. So yes, thank you again, and see you tomorrow, Friday.
I definitely had a blast and would recommend coming to this event the next time it's on. I'm not sure when they'll be on next, but it is a